Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and today we're talking about the final chapter in M. Night Shyamalan's superhero trilogy, Glass. So the majority of this video is going to be spoiler free, but at the end I'm going to discuss some spoiler points, but I'll let you know when I get to there. So this movie, people have not been too kind to it. Reactions to this movie have not been positive, and a lot of people are not liking it. So I'm surprised to say that for the most part I actually really enjoyed this movie. I do have issues with it, don't get me wrong, this isn't perfect. This is definitely the weakest of the trilogy, this is definitely the weakest of the three movies, and I have a lot of problems with it, especially when it gets to the third act and that ending, which we'll get to that. But for the most part, I found this to be a really entertaining, really solid conclusion to the trilogy. I love how this movie connected both Unbreakable and Split, and really made it feel like a sequel to both of those. I mean, it did focus a little more on the Split elements than the Unbreakable elements, but it still had moments where it was very Unbreakable heavy and moments where it was very Split heavy, so it really felt like a solid sequel to the first two films. It made it really feel like this one big trilogy, you know, because Unbreakable and Split are very different types of movies, and this really connected the two and made it feel like one big thing, which I really liked. There's a lot of great stuff in this movie amongst some of the messy stuff that it has. So the plot of this movie picks up about like only 3 weeks after Split, and David Dunn, also known as the Overseer, is on the search for Kevin, who's still on the loose and has captured a group of cheerleaders. So David, along with his son, who's helping him out, as like his partner kind of, are trying to find him. And in the process, both David and Kevin end up getting captured and sent to this mental hospital, the same one where Elijah Price is at. And the place is run by this scientist, Ellie Staple, who is trying to convince all of them that they're not superheroes. This is all in their head and they have no abilities. She's just kind of rationalize everything they're doing and trying to disprove the fact that they have superpowers. Now this movie opens very strongly. I love the first act of this movie. The first act primarily focuses on David Dunn trying to capture Kevin, so there's kind of a mixture of those two storylines. And the stuff they did with David I love. I love seeing where he's been after all these years. I love seeing him interact with his son, who is the same actor from Unbreakable, who does a really good job. He's actually a really good actor, and I just love seeing him in here. And the best part about this is the fact that Bruce Willis is actually trying in this movie. He's actually acting and giving a good performance, and I love that. I haven't seen Bruce Willis act in so many years. He's not sleepwalking through it, and I love it. I love seeing him. Like I said, I love seeing him interact with his son, who's kind of like his partner, you know, kind of like on the headset, you know, telling him where to go and kind of stuff like that. I love seeing that. I love seeing the stuff with Kevin too, more stuff with James McAvoy's great performance, because he gets a lot to do in this one. He gets to act out a lot of different personalities in here, and he does a phenomenal job. So yeah, this movie starts off super strong. Like, I love the first act of this movie. When I was watching it, I was like, holy crap, like this is great. This is what I wanted to see. And then the second half kicks in, and that's when they're all in the mental hospital, and the movie slows down, which is not a problem, because, you know, Unbreakable was a slow-paced movie, so that had no effect on me. I have no issues with the slower pace in the second act, but I did kind of have a problem with kind of just some of the stuff that's happening in it. Like, I don't know, by the time we got to like the third or fourth time that the doctor was trying to convince them that they don't have superpowers and trying to like rationalize everything that they did, like she finds ways to rationalize the entire ending of Split and how he was able to do all that kind of stuff. I was just like, okay, come on, like we get it. I know what you're trying to do. It makes sense because this is, you know, the real world, so they'd of course be realistically trying to rationalize this stuff. But I was like, this is not really what I wanted to see, you know, this is not what interests me or excites me. It's just watching someone deconstruct everything that they've done and try to convince them that they're not heroes. I don't know, that didn't quite work for me too well. But also the focus is kind of off. Like, not the pacing or anything, it's just the focus. Because for a long time in the first half of the movie, Elijah Price doesn't have a whole lot to do. Samuel L. Jackson doesn't do too much. But then once he starts becoming a main part of the movie and starts doing a lot, like Bruce Willis disappears. Like, there's a big chunk in the movie where Bruce Willis just isn't there. We never cut to him, we never see what he's doing. We just He's just not there. And you're like, wait, what? So the focus is a little off. It's not able to balance every character. The person who has the most focus is Kevin, because he is kind of a major part of the movie. But it's like when we're focusing on David, we're not focusing on Elijah. And when we're focusing on Elijah, we're not focusing on David. And I felt like there's a lot more they could have done with David Dunn's character that they didn't quite do. They could have done a little bit more with it. You know, so that, like I said, the focus wasn't that right. But for the most part, I was okay with, like, the second act. Like I said, I wish it would have had a bit better focus, but I was into it. I was liking, you know, the character. I was liking seeing these characters interact. When Samuel Jackson does do stuff, he's wonderful. He's really good in the part. Like, I love that character, and he does a great job with it. And the thing about this movie is, like, it's kind of a bummer that, like, a lot of Shyamalan's writing kind of brings him down with certain movies, because this movie is very well directed. Like, there's a lot of great shots, a lot of great use of lighting, a lot of great stuff in this movie that I was watching and I was like, holy crap, that shot's amazing, that bit's great. And it's just kind of a bummer that, like, there's a lot of kind of problems that hampers Shyamalan down, because when he is great, he is legit great. You know, like, from a visual standpoint, from a directing standpoint, but there's other stuff that just doesn't quite work. And then we get to the third act, which I'm not going to discuss it, like, spoiler-wise right now, I'll get to it in a few minutes. But it's going to be very divisive, to say the least. And I can see a lot of people not liking this one. Now, my actual opinion on it is very mixed. Like, I have to give Shyamalan props for going in directions that I never would have thought of, that are very unexpected, you know? But I don't know if I'm fully satisfied with how it went. I was like, is that really what I wanted to see out of this? Like, is that really what they should have done? So it's kind of like a weird thing where it's like, I definitely appreciate it because it's a kind of a ballsy move with some of the stuff that he does. But some of it's like, was it really worth it? You know what I mean? Like, some of it didn't quite work. I feel like if you've been a fan of Unbreakable and if you've been waiting 19 years for this movie, the ending's gonna massively disappoint you. Now me, I only saw Unbreakable for the first time maybe like 5 or so years ago, so I don't have as much of a weight, and so that's why I don't think it like pissed me off as much. Like I could see diehard Unbreakable fans being pissed off at the ending. I could see that. I can totally understand that. Like I said, for me not being a lifelong fan of this, like I said, for me personally, it didn't quite piss me off. I was just kind of like, okay, it's not really where I've gone with it, and it's not really that satisfying of a conclusion to a couple of these characters, but you know, it's something. It's very different. It's very interesting. So I guess you can say this movie is like a mixed bag. Like, for the most part, like I said, I actually really enjoyed it. And for the most part, I found it to be very entertaining and very good. Like, I can understand why people wouldn't like it, but I, for the most part, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I liked seeing these characters again. There's a lot of interesting stuff with it, and I was invested in the movie the whole time. I was never bored. I was never like, oh no, just move on with it. Like I said, there's one scene where it was like a whole big scene of her analyzing everybody and saying like, you know, oh, this is what really could have happened. That's the one scene where I was kind of like, okay, let's just move on. But aside from that, I was really into it. And there are a decent amount of action scenes in here, which is, you know, quite different from the previous movies. They're very kind of low-key, kind of standard stuff. And for the most part, they're handled really well and pretty entertaining. There's a couple, like, overuse of point-of-view shots that doesn't quite work. But for the most part, the action scenes are fun. It's fun to see David fighting, you know, the beast and stuff like that. I like the music in this movie. I have to say that with an asterisk. I like the music in this movie. I like the music they use in the opening credits. It has this like kind of like ticking clock thing to it, and it's like really good. And it really just helps set the tone and got me like into the movie. And they do use like themes from both Split and Unbreakable. So that stuff's pretty cool, but like I said with the asterisk, is that there's not enough Unbreakable. There's a lot of Split stuff in here, a lot of the Split music cues, but really not much from Unbreakable, which is kind of a bummer, and I feel like it really needed more of that, especially because that stuff is just wonderful and great, and I wish it would have had more of that in there. James McAvoy kills it in the movie. He easily steals the show, just, you know, moving in and out these different personalities, just like it's nothing, just like in Split, you know, he does such a great job. But I will say there's one kind of problem with it, is that there's this device they use throughout the movie, which are basically like these strobe lights that they flash, which makes them change personalities. So like if he's turning into the Beast, they just flash the light and he'll turn into someone else. And I feel like that kind of diminished the effectiveness of his like different personalities a little bit. I think it just made it a little bit sillier just watching him going in and out like so quickly. Like it wasn't as effective as like in Split when like you see like him as those different characters for a prolonged time, you know, and then you have that one scene where he does like switch like an instant. It's like, holy crap, that's crazy. When he does it in this movie, when it's like a lot of times, it's a little, I don't know, not as effective. But like I like how like some of that his personalities actually have development in this movie. Like the Dennis personality actually has like an arc in this movie, which was surprising. And also surprising, I'm like, wow, I actually care for these other personalities. That's really weird. That just shows how good of a performance he gives, that he's able to like to have these different personalities and have us care about them. Like I really like how, like I said, how Dennis had this like arc to him. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, he was just great. Like this really was McAvoy's movie. Like he nailed it. So yeah, that's Glass. Like I said, not perfect. Definitely a mixed bag. I don't think it's as awful as a lot of people are making it out to be. Not the best movie. Definitely the weakest of the trilogy. But still an entertaining end to this very unique and very different superhero trilogy. So now I'm going to move on to spoilers and discuss that ending. So if you haven't seen the movie and want to, you know, don't watch any further. But if you're not, or if you have seen it, or if you don't and just don't care, then yeah, keep watching, why not? So the ending of this movie, Jesus. Okay, so there's like 3 twists. And funny enough, the first twist was the most obvious one. It's the one I knew they were gonna do. Like, they hinted at it in Split when they mentioned that Kevin's dad, like, left on a train and never came back. And we're like, was he on the same train as David Dunn in Unbreakable? And, well, of course, yes, he was. Now, I kind of saw that coming, and I kind of didn't want to do that. Kind of like, I always call it the Scream 3 twist, where they have the big reveal at the end, and then basically they reveal that everything is connected, that ties back to the first 2 movies, in clearly a tacked on way. So that's why I always call it the Scream 3 twist. And that's what kind of this was. It was like, oh, just finding a way to connect, you know, Unbreakable and Split, 2 very different movies, and connecting them in that way. And I just didn't care for that. I was like, yeah, it's kind of unnecessary, kind of a very coincidental type of twist, you know? So I didn't care for that. But then you get to the next 2 twists, and that's where things get really interesting. So, the second twist. After Kevin, or the Beast, kills Elijah, which that was pretty crazy, then Casey ends up running up to him and kind of calming him down and bringing Kevin back out, and you think everything's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, boom, Kevin gets shot and friggin' dies. And his death scene, man, that was pretty emotional. That was a really well-handled death scene. Then he dies, and then the SWAT guys take David Dunn and then start drowning him in a puddle, basically killing him. Which I was like, what? And it turns out that the doctor this whole time was part of this organization that goes around killing the superheroes. Either they kill them or they try to convince them that they're not superheroes and let them live. But you know, if that doesn't work, death. And that was, okay, that was surprising. I was not expecting that. I had a feeling something was up with her, like something just didn't seem quite right. But like, I was not expecting that. And that's what I was saying by like the twist being like something I wouldn't expect. Like I wouldn't nearly expecting, like if I heard that David Dunn was gonna die in this movie, I was like, oh, he's probably gonna be some sort of heroic death, like defending everyone from the Beast, you know? Not just being grabbed by SWAT men and drowned in a puddle. And in some regards, like, that's not really a satisfying way for David Dunn to go out. Like, you think back to the first Unbreakable, you know, where it's about this, like, guy, this kind of sad guy that isn't really doing what he wants to do, and then turns out he finds out that his role in life is to be a superhero. You know, it's pretty awesome. And what's the payoff to all that? SWAT guys drown him in a puddle. You know, see, like, so in a weird way, like, it's not very, like, a satisfying conclusion, but it's definitely something unique. Like, again, that's the last thing I would have thought of was going to happen in this movie. But it was a really interesting twist. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool, but it was kind of weird to introduce this big, like, organization, you know, right at the tail end of your movie, when you're not going to do another one, so you're not going to explore it anymore. It just seemed kind of like a lot to throw in at the last 20 minutes of your movie, but it was interesting, and it left on a very bleak note. Like, when I was watching this, I was like, man, that's such a bleak note to end this movie on. You know, you see the organization deleting the camera footage and just them getting away with it, and you're like, holy crap, is this movie just gonna end with that, like, organization of people just getting away with it? I'm like, if it does, crap, that's depressing. But then you get to twist 3, and I like this one. I actually thought this was a really solid twist. You find out that Elijah downloaded the camera feed before they deleted everything and sent the files to his mom, and then her, Casey, and David's son leak the footage online for the world to see and the world to find out that there are superheroes. And that's how the movie ends. And I like that ending. I think it really works. I think it's a good way to cap off the series, actually. I thought that was really good. I like that final scene in the train station when, like, you see all 3 characters and they're having, like, flashbacks to, like, other bits earlier from the earlier movies and stuff like that. Like, I like that. Although, kind of, like, I see what they're going for by them waiting in the train station, like, all the viral footage, like, coming out. It was kind of an easy way to condense, like, the idea that the footage got out there. But it was kind of like a weird scene of just like everyone just all of a sudden pulling up the footage, and also in a way that doesn't quite work with modern day technology. Like in modern day, if footage is on YouTube of security camera footage of a guy like bending stuff or a guy lifting the car, you're gonna be like, oh, cool viral video, guys. Like, how'd you do that? Was that After Effects? You know, like nowadays we wouldn't really buy that. So that part doesn't quite work. If you think about it too hard, it kind of falls apart and doesn't quite work. But if you don't think about it too hard, I really like it. And I think it's a really nice way to end off the series. You know, I mean, like I said, it doesn't have to end off with David Dunn being drowned in a puddle, but everything else after that, I'm like, okay, that worked. And also that ending kind of justified some stuff earlier on, because there's this build-up with, like, the tallest building in Philadelphia just got built, and Elijah's like, oh, we're going to bring everyone there, we're going to have this big fight, and that's going to reveal to the world everything. But then the climax just ends up being a fight scene in the front yard of the mental hospital. When I was watching, I was like, oh, that's very underwhelming. Like, why would you build up the whole high-rise building and just have them fight outside and that's it? Okay. But then you find out that it was a suicide mission and Elijah was never meant to go there, and I was like, okay, that makes sense now. Okay, that's understandable. That's justified. I like it. So yeah, just kind of a mixed bag of an ending that some of it works. Like I said, I like kind of the end goal, the end game of Elijah leaking the footage and getting it out there and that kind of ending that way. I like that, but how we got there was kind of, it was different and kind of and surprising as hell. Like, I was like, what the hell is going on when it was happening? But I'm not sure if it was fully satisfying, if you know what I mean. It was definitely something unexpected, so I have to give it that. But I can easily see why that would really piss people off and people would not be happy with that ending, because some of it doesn't quite work. But at least I will give it this, though, with that ending, with, like, the organization. Even though it kind of comes in at the last minute, they do kind of build to it. They kind of hint at it throughout the movie, because you have scenes earlier on where they're just like, yeah, like, why aren't there other superheroes? Why haven't we heard more of this? And you find out, well, that's why, because they're going around killing them. So I was like, okay, at least, like, Shyamalan kind of, like, planted the seeds for it a little bit throughout the movie. So they at least hinted at it a little bit earlier on, so it wasn't just completely out of the blue. But yeah, like I said, mixed bag of an ending. Some stuff I really liked, some stuff I didn't, you know. I also loved the use of deleted scenes from Unbreakable that they used as flashbacks. Like, I thought that was really cool. There's 2, like, key scenes that they used, or they took deleted footage from Unbreakable and used them as, like, a flashback scene. I thought that was so clever, and I loved the use of that. I thought that was such a smart thing to do, and I thought that was really cool. I really liked that. So that's Glass. Like I said, not perfect. It has some great stuff in there, but also some kind of dumb, questionable, very questionable things in there as well. But, you know, unpopular opinion here, I know. I did enjoy it, so I find it pretty entertaining for the most part, despite the dumb stuff that didn't quite work. And I really liked the way I was able to tie all 3 movies together, not with the dumb third act twist, but just in general by bringing the characters in there and connecting the storylines. Like, I thought I did a really cool job of connecting all the movies and making this a really unique and very different type of trilogy that's definitely worth checking out. Even with the flaws of this one, even though it's not the best conclusion, I still think it's cool to check out all 3 films. It's a very interesting thing. I think it's really cool. And yeah, that's about it for now. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.